A report has come out that indicates there are a lot of teams interested in Fred VanVleet, so we'll list those teams and break down that report in this video. Additionally, the Toronto Raptors got a massive win over the Sacramento Kings last night, so we'll take a look at that game, as well as a former Toronto Raptor being recruited by the Washington Wizards. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump to the first topic of discussion. The first thing we're taking a look at is Fred VanVleet's high demand on the trade market. Now, Fred VanVleet is a guy that it's really hard to predict where he's gonna land, what's really gonna happen with Fred VanVleet's future, because one, he's a dude that we know. The Toronto Raptors front office, the organization, values him greatly. He was an integral piece to the Toronto Raptors winning an NBA championship, right? He was, went absolutely nuclear in that Bucks series in the conference finals and in the NBA finals. Once Kyle Lowry left, he took the reins as sort of the leader on the Toronto Raptors in terms of personnel, even though obviously Pascal Siakam's the number one option. But this year, he's had a very up and down season. Last year was an all-star form, but following last year's all-star break, was dealing with injuries. And this season, while he's turned it up as of late, his stats are down, and he's just been really inconsistent. Mixed with the Toronto Raptors sort of losing ways in the recent months, right? A lot of people are predicting that the Raptors wouldn't want to give him a big contract this summer, and we should probably move him ahead of this year's trade deadline. But, we've heard a little reports that the front office really doesn't want to move on for Fred VanVleet. They didn't come to an extension agreement this summer, but it's likely the Toronto Raptors will give him a contract. But a report has come out basically indicating that the Toronto Raptors have underperformed this season. Several competing franchises hopeful that they will restructure their roster for the future. Most notably, Fred VanVleet, nearly 29 years old and in the final year of his contract at $22.7 million or $22.8 million and an option for 2023, may be in the industry and then many in the industry expect him to decline. Either the Raptors and VanVleet will extend their marriage, or the team will look to get value for him before this year's trade deadline. If the latter, several playoff contenders, at least teams that consider themselves playoff contenders, will have interest, including the Miami Heat, Los Angeles Lakers, Los Angeles Clippers, Minnesota Timberwolves, Dallas Mavericks, Phoenix Suns, Washington Wizards, and so too will the Orlando Magic, per multiple NBA sources. So then the report goes on to say, this is coming from Bleacher Report as well, that the Magic are eager to return to the playoffs, and this may not be their year, but locking into a mature point guard alongside to mentor Franz Wagner, as well as Paolo Banchero, is believed to hold the long-term appeal. That assumes Fred VanVleet and would be amenable to a long-term stay in Orlando. While it's unclear how open Toronto is to the move, buzz is the team is asking for a premium in general for its talent, young players, picks, and veterans on team-friendly contracts. So that's very, very interesting because, again, the article echoes the sentiment that no one really knows what the Toronto Raptors are going to do at this point. It feels like every single day we're getting new updates, new reports, new insights here and there in terms of the asking prices, but the common theme is the Toronto Raptors' top four guys are not going for cheap, with the exception of maybe potentially Gary Trent Jr., but those seem to be dialed back if you watch the reports from our last video. So if Fred VanVleet is going to be traded, if the Raptors are going to move on from him, there are a lot of suitors. There are a lot of teams that could potentially be bidding for the all-star point guard, the all-star last season. I don't imagine he'll be an all-star this year, but that is pretty cool because whether you want to keep him or whether or not, it's nice to have teams competing with each other. I mean, if you look at this list, that's a lot of teams, right? The Heat, the Lakers, the Clippers. We talked about the Clippers in the video I posted this morning, but the Timberwolves, the Mavericks, the Suns, the Wizards, the Magic. Those are a lot of teams that have a lot of players, right? That could potentially be thrown into packages, picks that could be coming the Toronto Raptors' way. And the more teams are interested in your guy, the better it is because those then players will be, or teams will be competing. You can up the bids, get a little bidding war going. And Masai Ujiri is going to be looking for a haul to get rid of Fred VanVleet and get rid of the guy that people have been calling my BF or whatever in the comment section. I'm not a big fan of selling low on Fred VanVleet, but if you can get a massive haul for him, especially considering his regression on the defensive end this season and the fact that we're going to have to pay him a lot of money this summer in order to retain him, then I'm cool. So if there's a bidding war, make it happen. But, if you guys want to make some predictions yourself, yourselves. Definitely check out the Cool Bet app using the link down below. They're a sportsbook regulated in Ontario. They're available all across Canada, and they have odds for every single Toronto Raptors game. You know, the over-unders in terms of the game score, the player stats, whether it be points, rebounds, assists, really anything. Right, you can bet on regarding these games, you know, the NBA games, or really any sport in general. And they also have custom bets for the Raptors trade deadline. And you can currently see Fred VanVleet's the topic of this segment, but, you know, he's a minus 370 to stay with the Raptors. But that report brought up the Orlando Magic, you know, plus 400 odds if you think he could end up down there in Orlando. You know, if you think he can go to Miami, you know, for a Kyle Lowry deal or something like that. Or you can get some good bang for your buck. So shout to CoolBet for supporting the podcast. It means the world to us. But let's dive into the next topic of discussion. And this is the Toronto Raptors getting an impressive win in Sacramento. Now, the Sacramento Kings, this is not your usual Sacramento Kings. I mean, it feels like the Raptors generally take losses when they actually go to Sacramento, when they go on those West Coast swings. But this is not your Sacramento Kings of days past. This Kings team is good. They've resurged. I believe they're third or fourth in the Western Conference right now, with Sabonis playing well. Keegan Murray's playing well as their rookie prospect. Fox has taken a leap since Halliburton is gone. And Kevin Huerter, man, this guy is an elite pickup for that team. And, you know, the game last night was 11:30 Newfoundland time, so I wasn't able to catch the full thing. I watched the highlights after, but I watched the first half and peeped the box score, looked at the highlights, and this was a very impressive win for the Toronto Raptors, right? Looking at the box score, right? Pascal obviously doing his thing, playing well. OG Anunoby from the first half I saw was playing some solid defense, but Fred VanVleet continues to do his thing out there, facilitate for others, but Scotty Barnes, the 10 assists, he was getting a lot of gorgeous dimes early, only had 7 points in the game, only took 8 shots, but the way he was driving the lane and facilitating was really, really nice to see. And the Raptors, you know, they were able to hold off the Kings and all that sort of stuff. But the really encouraging thing about last night is Precious Achiuwa coming back into his own. There was questions about how Precious Achiuwa would sort of perform this season because he had a cold start. He had a remarkable improvement over the course of last season, but came into this year sort of not playing to his usual or his end of season standards from last year. But the defense looks 1,000 times better with Precious Achiuwa out there on the court, and he was getting some buckets last night. Not letting Sabonis, not letting the big man down there in Sacramento, you know, get in his way. I mean, Precious, 19 points in this one, had 5 rebounds, 9 of 12 from the field, knocked down a 3-point shot, and that's the impact you want to see. You know, the Toronto Raptors, the bench has been a huge topic of discussion this year because it's been bad, right? We haven't gotten that production off the bench, off the pine, that really would allow the Toronto Raptors to win games and keep leads and hold, you know, not play our starters 150 minutes a night. But Precious played well. And then Chris Boucher, you know, a guy that's been in the doghouse for some stretches. Nick Nurse has criticized his performance at points this season, but Boucher, you know, 22 minutes of action, 16 points himself, 6 rebounds, had a hot start, knocked down a couple threes early, which is big for Boucher's confidence, right? We can be getting production. Like, look, we had 2 guys literally do anything in the game last night off the bench. Juancho Hernangomez at 12 minutes, you know, 1 point, still not able to knock down any of his threes, but literally just having 2 players that are effective off the bench, it's a game changer for the Toronto Raptors. So while I know a lot of people are, you know, looking for kazoos, hoping to tank, they're coming to the Raptors side just for Raptors therapy sessions rather than hype sessions as we usually have on the pods, you know, looking to see what moves we'll make and, you know, how we'll get Victor Wembanyama and whatnot. But, you know, we'll see how this road trip goes. But if we go 7-0 and do something remarkable, maybe it's not a bad idea to pick up high. I don't know. The season, we're in a tough spot. We're in a tough hole right now. We're out of the play-in and all that sort of stuff. But, like, these are the moments that frustrate me as a Raptors fan. Because I came into the season expecting a top 3 seed. And I know I'm going to get roasted for that prediction. But, you know, given our performance last year, I don't think it was that crazy of a take. We were a 5th seed last season, but, you know, if we can just get some added production around our core, maybe tweak some things, I still think we have a lot of talent on this roster. That's why I'm not all about a full-out rebuild, right? Like, throw away all of our roster for just open draft picks and all that sort of stuff. But I would like to see the construction be shifted a little bit so we're in the best potential, maybe not to succeed this season, but next year. And if we can do that with Victor Wembanyama, that'd be great. That'd be great. But last night, overall, great performance, right? He kept Sabonis to 9 points, 9 turnovers, only had 8 rebounds, 4 assists, but they did a really good job at guarding the big man there, and we've been getting crushed by big men over the course of this season, right? Kevin Huerter hit a few threes and stuff, but the Raptors did a really, really solid job last night, so I commend them. I'm still rooting for the Raptors until after the trade deadline, and we actually have a direction whether or not we're tanking or we're winning, but it's nice to see our team playing well. But the next thing we're taking a look at is the Wizards interested in a former Raptor. Now, the Wizards, people talk about the Raptors being directionless, stuck in the middle, right? All that sort of stuff. Well, the Wizards, who the heck knows what's going on with them? Because a report has come out that the Washington Wizards have shown interest in Serge Ibaka. Now, the Bucks are in a position where they're going to trade away Serge Ibaka. I wouldn't mind bringing Serge back to the Raptors just for culture's sake. You know, he's a fun guy, can make a potential rebuild, retool, right? A little bit more enjoyable, right? His relationships with the squad, you know, the How Hungry Are You episodes, right? Serge Ibaka is a quintessential Toronto Raptor, get some of those championship vibes back. But the Wizards seem to be in win now mode, and they're in like the same spot as the Raptors at this point in terms of the standings, and they have some bad contracts, some injury-prone players, and they seem to be buyers, but they got rid of one of their young prospects. I don't know what's going on down there in Washington, but Serge Ibaka, he's not going to change any of the tides, any of the waves for Sacramento down there, or Sacramento, Freudian slip, the Washington Wizards, but I don't know. Let me know if you guys like to see Serge Ibaka in a Washington Wizards jersey. But the final thing we're taking a look at in this video is fake OG Anunoby rumors circulating. Now, I'm assuming these are fake. I've seen tweets from this account and stuff. I can't get any. I did some digging to see if there's any validity to them, but I got sent these reports, these updates by multiple people trying to get my reaction, my take on it, and it's fake. These are not true. NBA trade report. There's a report that the Knicks are willing to offer Obi Toppin and 2 first-round picks as a starting point for the Raptors, OG Anunoby. While that would be a cool starting point for a package, the source I can't get any validation in the source. Let me know in the comment section below if you can validate what's going on, but this is not true stuff. And then, the Thunder, Knicks, and Blazers have shown serious interest in OG Anunoby, right? Don't get bamboozled. Don't get fooled by these rumors, but when I saw it at first, when I heard Thunder interest in OG, obviously there's no substantiated evidence that they actually are, but it could be cool to get some of those draft picks from Oklahoma City. Maybe a Lou Dort, right? Might be a nice, cool acquisition. But you guys are the best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and stay tuned for the next video. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.